Let's talk about managing technology life cycles and risk. And I promise this isn't just me saying, hey, your gear's all out of warranty, go buy all new everything. Real life cycle management is a strategic tug of war between really two questions or mindsets. The first is the CIO mindset, for example. Will newer tech unlock efficiency and potential revenue? And balancing that with the CFO mindset, can we squeeze potentially a few more quarters out of what we already own without, investing in all new technology? The sweet spot there is somewhere in the middle, and that line moves for every single business over time. Now, why does a life cycle plan really matter? Let's look at some of the risk vectors that need to be considered, and I'll start with a hardware example. Laptop hard drives. By year 5, a solid state hard drive, that's the standard in most laptops today, it jumps from about 1% to 11%. Now, when you consider that every unplanned hour of downtime, even for a single employee, can be hundreds of dollars on average, and if it's more widespread than that, it could be in the thousands. That could have a real significant impact. End of life software. At the end of Q1 of 2025, for example, about 74% of small and medium businesses were still using Windows 10, even though Windows 11 has already been out for quite some time. And Windows 10 goes end of support on October 14th of 2025. And so there is a significant risk there from no security patches and there being compliance and liability concerns that increase the risk of a breach and potentially fines. Consider data loss as another one. 1 in 10 small business laptops are either lost or stolen during its lifetime. The average cost of a single unencrypted laptop breach is about $49,000. Now, a formal lifecycle plan forces you to weigh these numbers against the price of a refresh before you're in crisis mode, not trying to play catch up after. We use 4 building blocks to create what we consider to be a pretty solid lifecycle strategy. And the first one is asset inventory and age mapping. We need to know everything about pretty much every workstation, server, license, and warranty expiry date. We'll then color code these things green, yellow, and red, depending on the remaining manufacturer warranty or support. And then we use a risk scoring model that blends that age and the criticality and the security exposure of those devices. I'll give you an example. A 7-year-old laptop handling client data is going to score higher or a higher level of risk than for even a 4-year-old kiosk PC at the front of the store. We look at refresh cadence and budget smoothing. For example, we might replace 20 to 25% of the higher risk devices each fiscal year. And what that does is it takes a giant CapEx spike and turns it into a predictable OpEx bite. We look at decommissioning and data sanitization. We want to standardize the way that we're getting rid of data and making sure that if we resell or donate or just destroy the devices, no sensitive data is potentially being lost or stolen in that process. Now, there's a couple examples I like to use with some clients. So we had one that was a manufacturing group. They had a machine down on the shop floor near a bunch of their larger machinery. It was used in help, doing the fulfillment of their manufacturing process. And it was crashing constantly. It would just turn off in the middle of the day. And so what we ended up doing was looking at, okay, this is a high-risk device. We look at the risk and the cost of this downtime. Let's get this swapped out. Let's get a ruggedized tablet. We actually put a really nice tablet device on the floor that was good against being bumped or dropped. And what they looked at the end of about a year, they estimated it was about a 42% reduction in downtime, meaning that they were running more smoothly just within about that first 12 months of making that change. And so was the cost of replacing that device worthwhile? They absolutely felt like it was, because that risk was too significant. We were also working with a CPA firm, and they had an older piece of legacy software. It was purposely built for them. And they didn't want to get rid of it necessarily. They liked it, but they understood that the cost of trying to migrate it to a new cloud platform and trying to maintain it at that point was too expensive. And so we did a risk assessment. We said, okay, how long can we keep this working in kind of the yellow, kind of risky, but okay, we're getting by state, as we then build in a new application or a new solution and get the data migrated, and we're able to get them away from this older application. It was successful. After about the first year of switching to the new application, they said it saved them about $18,000 a year in the support cost for the older application. And then they gained new functionality from the new tool. They had real-time dashboards and a few other things that made them feel like they were getting more value out of that technology investment. It's not about saying that the solution is always going to be replacing things. It was determining when it was appropriate to replace those things and what the risk factors were that needed to go into that equation was what was important. Now, when we're looking at, the CFO and CIO lenses, here's some questions that I think are worthwhile asking to help Brad add some clarity. What's the ROI of upgrading earlier? Are we able to get faster workflows and happier staff or new features in there? Are we able to lock in bulk discounts and cut emergency repair bills? Another question would be, what's the risk if we wait? Security gaps, app incompatibility, legal exposure, cash drains of various kinds. And how do we measure success? Is it in reduced ticket volume? Is it in uptime? Or are we looking at just the lower total cost of ownership per device, smoother cash flow, avoiding downtime costs? Our clear risk threshold policy marries both of these views together. For example, if you were replacing a laptop every 5 years, you could reduce the rate of failure by about 15%, whichever of those things hits first, right? Some of the key takeaways that I really want you to get is that we need to inventory everything. There really can't be blind spots. We need to assign risk scores. We need to use that data and not gut feelings when we're trying to assess risk. We need to plan refresh cycles. We need to treat them like maintenance rather than emergencies. And then you need to document and review these things annually. Targets are going to move, and your plan needs to move along with that. If you need help mapping out that first lifecycle plan or validating one that you've got, reach out to us at inquiries@annealtech.com. We'll walk through the numbers. We'll set those thresholds that fit your risk tolerance, and we'll keep both the CIO and CFO smiling.